Good evening and good night, everyone. This is update for May 19, 2022, day 85 of the war, end of the date update. One of the viewers asked to do quick summary. So I will do quick summary and then we're just gonna follow the regular structure. As a summary, the situation is the following. Almost everywhere Russian forces are on strategic defense or continuing local tactical attacks. The only exception is area near Popasna, where situation is very dangerous for Ukrainian defense forces. Stay with us and you'll find out details what's going on there when we're gonna do walkthrough the front line. So now let's go back to sort of strategic general discussion of general topics. So finally, Ukrainian government abandoned horrific idea of regulating and setting prices for fuel. However, at this point, all negative forces were set in motion, and situation in Ukraine in terms of availability of fuel is plain horrific, to the point that people are switching to bicycles. And even military forces who are sort of inside of the country, sometimes they get rationing of fuel as well. So that's a result, for the most part, of the horrible economic decisions that were done by Ukrainian government. And that cannot be blamed on the Russian side. Yes, Russian side damaged Ukrainian logistics and railroad system, but it wasn't sort of fatal blow. It still was manageable. The problem is that Ukrainian government essentially created neo-communism economically, and that killed all incentives for private suppliers to supply fuel to Ukraine. And so that's a source of the problem. They stopped doing right now, but the problem is that all of the suppliers don't really have much trust in the government right now, because they can on a whim they can change, and they can go back to the old ways. And so that's a big problem there. There's a second big problem that apparently Ukrainian military command is not learning, is that several days ago, we didn't mention about, we sort of were too busy and didn't discuss it, but 3 days ago, Russian military hit training camp, Ukrainian military training camp called Desna. It's in this area where I'm showing. It's actually the biggest and the most important training camp for Ukrainian military here. And so they apparently they hit barracks or whatever you call it, and there were probably up to 100 Ukrainian soldiers killed. This is, if those who follow this whole series remembers that there were hits in Mykolaiv, the barracks. Then there were, this is where Mykolaiv of the 79th Brigade, right? So the rear units of the 79th Brigade. So there were quite a bit of casualties, probably also like 100 or slightly more than 100. Then that was about like end of March. Then there was another hit here, another training ground called Yavriv training ground, and there were quite a bit of foreign volunteers apparently killed by the Russian rocket. So this is third time when it must be very clear that Ukrainian military should not be sort of accumulating soldiers or resources in one place, and they keep doing it. And that's kind of tells a lot about the high level command that cannot, learn from, probably 300 people killed at this point. So that's that situation. Now let's switch to walk through the front line. We, as always, are going to do it in a clockwise fashion. We're going to just mention briefly about this front line here in Suma region, because that's where there are some tensions right now. There's artillery shelling. So basically both sides exchange artillery shelling. It's kind of like a playing ping pong, but there is no attacks in one way or another. So just artillery shelling and things like that. So now this is not kind of quiet sort of stretch of the state border. Now it's it's sort of not exactly front line, but sort of kind of area of tension, let's put this way. So now let's look what's going on with in Kharkiv area. So as you can see here, Russian side did sort of gentle kind of counterattack, and they pushed Ukrainian troops a little bit like couple kilometers south to the so back to the village of Ruski Teshki here, and then also they started engaged Ukrainian troops in the village Ternova. So that's still in Ukrainian hands, but there is a fighting on outskirts of the village here. So this is not like a major Russian attack or anything. This is just desire to restore status quo with the buffers that they used to have here. So it's more like a tactical attack to improve positions. And that's sort of significance of it. Let's continue. Now let's look at the Izyum bridgehead. Izyum bridgehead significance for those who are not aware, first time, is this is Russian attempt to, this is how they would like to encircle all of these Ukrainian troops in this Donbass salient. So they just want to break through Ukrainian defenses, go south and, meet with the southern pincer and encircle all of the Ukrainian troops here. So let's look here. This is schematic picture of the Izyum bridgehead, and also there is a Lyman bridgehead, which is held by Ukrainian army, 79th brigade to be specific. And in a way, the Severodonetsk is also at this point it was always bridgehead here, and it's being held by 57th brigade, Ukrainian brigade. Just in general, for those who are very new, if there's nothing like just 2 digits, it means brigade. If there is D, it means division, and then SFB means Special Forces Brigade. Right, T means tank, so TD, tank division. So there's A means airborne division, and M means mechanized division. So hopefully that's very simple, and TB means tank brigade. So that's very simple, just very quick explanation. We will do eventually standalone video to kind of explain all of the sort of the number, let's say table of orders for all of these units. But situation here is stable so far, no changes on the Izyum bridgehead, and the same is true for Lyman. But let's actually have a closer look. This is what Russian side gained so far. It's kind of like a big sort of triangular kind of, well, maybe like a diamond formation. So far, they only captured village of Dovhenki about 5 days or 7 days ago, and there was no progress since then. Here, Lyman bridgehead, it's essentially Ukrainian troops are split into two. It used to be one large bridgehead, and it was split into 2 pieces. Smaller one centered around town Svyatohirsk, and here Ukrainian troops have exit sort of routes for retreat. Right, as you can see, they can retreat orderly, and there won't be many losses here in case there is a pressure on the Russian side. Situation here, which is on this bridgehead around town Lyman, is a little bit more dangerous for Ukrainian side, specifically because the Russian side captured this village Dibrova, and they pressuring trying to. This is the only and the main escape route for Ukrainian troops. So Russian side is dangerously kind of close to it, and potentially can, if they put enough effort, cut this route. It's still possible to retreat because it's all kind of foresty. It's pine forest here. It's just basically like it says here, even national park. It's kind of like one big, huge resort area. This whole area around this Severodonetsk river here, it's one big resort area, so it's all pine trees and stuff like that. So it's still probably going to be possible to kind of like infiltrate and get back on the other side, but it's definitely going to be disorderly. There will be a lot of losses, and probably all of the equipment will be lost in the process. So this is situation so far. So far, the Russian side has not made progress here, but they kind of dangerously close to creating potential issue here for Ukrainian side. Now let's continue. Let's look at this tip of the Donbass salient, and we call it Severodonetsk salient. let's look what's going on there. And as we discussed, there is dangerous situation developing. So there was Russian attempt to establish bridgeheads and then kind of drive south and connect and create basically encirclement here. This was repelled by Ukrainian troops with large losses for the Russian side. Then sort of Russian side here in the north kind of stopped attempts. Apparently they had significantly enough losses so that they cannot continue offensives basically here. Because just for those who just joined, there was about at least 100 units of equipment, and it really means very horrific losses basically. So what's going on right now is Russian troops are putting pressure on the defense perimeter of Severodonetsk here, with mostly help of the Second Army Corps, which is formed from collaborators in Lugansk region of Ukraine, captured Lugansk region of Ukraine, right? So they are kind of like third-rated troops that, sort of if they die, nobody regrets, right? So they equipped with also very poorly relative to regular Russian troops. So it's basically, as we said, third-rated troop, and sort of treatment of them is kind of similar like that. But the reason that their role here is just to put pressure so that you and in a way kind of distract Ukrainian side so they cannot pull reserves out of here and to this area. And we'll explain what's going on here. You'll understand better. So essentially, they're just putting pressure. They're doing the suicidal attacks here just to keep Ukrainian defenders here engaged and not being able to maneuver with reserves from the 57th Brigade. And then let's keep going south. Let's see what's going on here. The same is going on here around Toshkivka. This is attacked by Second Army Corps. They captured some portion of Toshkivka village, but the fighting is still going on there. They also doing suicidal attacks against Ukrainian front line here because there are trenches here. There's strong points, even like concrete bunkers here. So it's very sort of say, it's like charging like tanks on the horses, right? So this is kind of type of attacks here happening. And the same as in the area of Toshkivka. So they are, heavy casualties for the Russian side, specifically for the Second Army Corps. But the point is to keep as well Ukrainian side engaged and not being able to pull any reserves from here. And this is what's really the most dangerous situation is here. That's happening in Popasna. For those who join, let's just explain how this whole kind of complex situation developed. So first, Russian troops managed to capture Popasna. Then they, if I remember correctly, they hit north, got stuck here near Kamyshuvaha. Then what they did, they actually hit west straight on this road, got stopped here on this border. Then they hit south, captured this village Novosvanika from the north. So basically, they hit it from the flank, because if they attack straight from east, again, there are also trenches, bunkers, and strongholds, so there will be high casualties. So what they did is kind of like attacking it from the flank and kind of like almost from the rear. So that allowed them to capture this. So now they control that. Then, so they were stopped here as well. And then what they did, then they attacked northwest, captured this village Druzhba. And then today what happened is kind of more dangerous developments. So first what they did, and this is actually, we have a little bit more information from Russian sources actually. So that there is a village here, we kind of don't see, it's too tiny, called Trypillya. So the road kind of goes through that Trypillya, and then it goes to this village Volodymyrivka that was captured here. So what the Russian side did is actually, and that was done by Wagner mercenaries, is they kind of like blocked Ukrainian troops in that village, basically like kind of like around the southern edge of the village, so that the rest of the Russian regular troops, and there are reports there is some airborne unit as well that we have not identified fighting. And so that airborne unit is basically kind of bypassed this stronghold and then they hit Volodymyrivka, which was apparently almost not defended because the expectation was that the Russians will be fighting for this Trypillya, and so they captured at the beginning of the day Volodymyrivka, and sort of started digging in there. And then what happened is then eventually this Wagner mercenaries focused on this Trypillya, and by the end of the day they captured Trypillya as well. So as a result, Ukrainian troops, we don't know exactly front line here. It's very clear that there are Ukrainian troops here on there is again village here. I think it's called Novokamenka, which is essentially kind of like outskirts of this small town called Soledar. So so that's what's going on here. So they were stopped here. We don't know about Ukrainian front line, what's going on here and what's going on there, right? So at the same time, so this was kind of like one sort of axis what they did today. The other one, and actually this is where Terminators were, those fighting vehicles called Terminators that we discussed a couple days ago. So they were attacking Kavashovaha. So what they did, apparently, the attack in Svyatohirsk was not successful. Then they actually turned to this like northwest. Basically, you just attacking off-road. Like there's no attack. There was probably no Ukrainian troops because the fighting is actually centered kind of like around the strongholds, around the villages. So there's just basically fields. So they went into the fields to northwest, and then they kind of attacked north. And there is a village here called Viktorivka. So, and apparently because Ukrainian side did not expect this kind of move, they expected that they will continue kind of hitting their head against Kavashovaha defenses. So they managed to capture this village Viktorivka, right? So now they kind of created very dangerous position. They kind of enveloping Ukrainian forces in this whole area. And, obviously we don't know if there is any Ukrainian troops here. So overall, this whole situation looks very, very dangerous for Ukrainian side. It's only a question if Russian troops have enough power to continue attacks. And as we discussed, apparently there is airborne unit somewhere here, which overall it doesn't look like they have very like sort of tank heavy group, because naval infantry brigade is kind of similar in nature to airborne unit, which just means like it's a light brigade that don't have tanks. So they don't have, like, that's just literally light infantry. And then Wagner mercenary is the same kind of idea. So the only one that's like kind of truly support with tank attacks and everything is this 57th mechanized brigade. But they've been here for a while, so we don't know at what sort of how much strength they have left in them. And maybe there are more Russian troops as well that we don't totally not aware. But at this point, this whole kind of like it's total breakthrough of the Ukrainian defensive lines. So at this point, it's probably impossible to patch it up, basically, to kind of like just create like front line here and front line here, because the perimeter is too big. So Ukraine doesn't have enough troops. They tried to use, for example, 115th militia brigade, but wasn't able to. And there was probably a couple battalions from it, not an entire brigade, but they were not able to successfully defend, because it's totally just infantry with automatic rifles and machine guns. They literally have not even no even artillery at all. So it's totally like militia, like the way it is. It's just like anti-tank rockets, and that's it. So very light, and so they're not able to withstand pressure of Russian regular troops. So they were kind of like pushed away. And so at this point, the only option for Ukrainian side to kind of to sort of fix this situation is actually some kind of counter-offensive. And the problem is, and we know that there is a 46th brigade somewhere here in this whole area, and to our understanding, it wasn't used anywhere. And plus, there is 58th brigade, so they could kind of muster some forces to do offensive. But the problem is that the Ukrainian army is totally not capable, like as a skill level, right? And that starts from the very top. So so even if they try to do it, it probably will not end well. So our base case scenario that this situation will be developing in a negative direction for Ukraine. We'll see. Maybe they will be able. Maybe we're wrong. That Ukrainian side will be able to create sort of like a patch here, but it really requires to pulling, using 46 brigade probably to create a patch here, and then they need probably more than 46 brigade to, at this point, because the breakout is too big, right? And Russian troop, whoever is kind of commanding Russian troops here is pretty doing pretty skillful job basically, because they attack at the sort of path of least resistance, and then they kind of creating so with each step they creating more more degrees of freedom for them to do more things, and then eventually they kind of created this whole situation here. So this is really dangerous sort of situation, really on the edge for Ukrainian side. The only sort of saving grace is this northern part was totally destroyed and they're not capable of anything. So, but what this may end up in being is that Ukrainian side will be forced to evacuate this whole kind of area, as you can see, and potentially even Severodonetsk, and maybe even like kind of like established line of defense, kind of like this. So that's maybe the Russian side will not be able probably to do encirclement or anything, because there's just not enough troops. Even if there are like 3 units plus Wagner mercenaries, they all probably will be quite a bit exhausted after all of these breakthroughs, and even like they need to do more. And there are quite a bit of Ukrainian troops here. There's density overall. So if they try to attack north, they will be meeting with these units. But it's definitely a dangerous situation for Ukrainian side. Let's put this way. So that's kind of like our look at this and analysis of it. You may agree or disagree. You're welcome to do comments in the comment section. So this is again the same kind of, from just more centered on Popasna, right? And so another thing that we didn't mention there. Then what they're trying to do with Troitsky, this village, is the same what they did with Novosvanivka, because there is a pretty strong sort of fortification line here, like facing east. So they're trying to attack it again from the flank, and probably also kind of trying like more like from the rear to avoid casualties related to storming the heavily defended sort of front line here. But so far it sounds like Ukrainian side was still able to hold this village Troitsky. In any case, as you can see, the situation is becoming very, very dangerous. It's only the question if Russian side has more to sort of throw into this, because if they don't have much more left, then it may just, Russian side probably will be able to kind of make more gains, kind of like this. But they, at that point they will lose density, so maybe it will nature kind of stop, maybe, but maybe not. So it's certainly a very dangerous situation for Ukrainian side. Let's put it this way. So that's for this section of the front line. Then we're gonna look. Well, we're not gonna look actually here because it's all quiet, just artillery shelling this section, and we're just gonna look straight of Donetsk, which is again nothing new here. Russian troops are regrouping after gaining Novobakhmutivka and villages around it. So there is nothing new here, no new developments. Russian side continues attacks on Marinka, on Novomikhailivka without much success. Kind of, discharging the heavily defended, heavily fortified front lines, which means heavy casualties as well. And obviously for Ukrainian side, some casualties. There's no question about it. And for that matter, we just want to make sure that 24th Brigade probably suffered quite heavy casualties in like what we mean here during all of this, is because it's all like dynamic action and dynamic moves, and they did not have ability to dig in very well here. So we're pretty sure that there are heavy losses for the 24th Brigade here. Okay, let's actually, this is more closer look at this area around Novobakhmutivka. So they kept, the Russian side captured Novobakhmutivka and village called Novoselivka Druga. The another objective for them, and we're not sure why they, is New York. So they tried to attack several times along this road towards New York, but they failed both times. So that's a situation here. Let's actually briefly discuss situation with defenders of Mariupol. So, as of morning of the 19th, there were about 1,800 Ukrainian soldiers who surrendered in Mariupol to Russian side. And that's out of 2,500. From what we understanding, so majority of Azov regiment was not surrendering and staying there. And as we discussed before, there were, out of 2.5, there were about 800 members of Azov. So what it looks to us is that the only ones from Azov who sort of surrendered were wounded, and some smaller portion, like maybe like women and stuff like that. But the core of Azov remains still there at Azovstal. And then the Russian side, they said that the commanders, there were three commanders, kind of like for this for the defense forces there. So there were a commander of Azov regiment, who was kind of like the commander of the entire group of the Ukrainian forces there. Then there was his deputy, and the third one was commander of the one of the battalions of the 36th Brigade. So if you remember, it was in April when majority of 36th Brigade surrendered to Russian troops at Ilyich factory. It was about 1,100 Ukrainian soldiers, and but smaller portion, about 200 to 300, decided not to surrender, and they kind of broke through from Ilyich to Azovstal, and joined Azov regiment there, and other Ukrainian troops at Azovstal. So basically, so that's where we're saying there's like that commander of that breakout group from the 36th Brigade. He kind of like joined to form kind of like a top sort of command group at this defensive forces at Azovstal. So the Russian side was saying that one of them actually surrendered today, and that's actually not true. None of them surrendered so far. So tomorrow it will be, which is actually right now already tomorrow, which is 20th. There will be, it will be like sort of like last and critical day, and we'll see what's going to happen there. I think the sort of this drama is kind of nearing its end, either today or Saturday. So we'll continue watching. Now let's quickly look at Zaporizhzhia front line. Here we always focus on the eastern section, where the Russian troops try to form southern pincer for the encirclement of Ukrainian troops in Donbass salient. At this point, it's the chances are close to zero, the way the whole situation is right now. So let's actually look. There's nothing new as always, and there's nothing new here. So Ukrainian forces firmly holding the line here. Russian forces don't have enough resources to continue attack, to continue moving north. So that's pretty much the essence of the situation here. And then if you look at the big picture of this front line, and this is that wedge that the Russian forces were trying to form, southern pincer, let's put this way, when they were trying to drive north. So Ukrainian defense, as we mentioned many times, is centered around four key towns: Kamensky, Orikhiv, Ulyai-Pole, and then Velika Novosilka. There's another one, Vuhledar, but it's more related to the Donetsk front line. So you can kind of technically maybe even say this is fifth one. So kind of forms the edge of the front line, because then front line kind of starts going northeast here. So, but anyways, at this point, all of the key points are holding on, and this situation is patched by Ukrainian side. So there's no really any active action here. There is obviously shelling. There's no question about it, and small scale attacks, like reconnaissance attacks, just kind of all of that action, but no like really big attacks with the strategic goals here. Then let's look at the final section of the front line, specifically Kherson bridgehead. As we mentioned many times, Russian side here is firmly on the defensive. They protecting their gains that they managed to get, specifically this freshwater channel to Crimea. So again, no essential changes here. Ukrainian side is sort of kind of happy that they managed to contain Russian forces, and at this point they don't have enough resources to do meaningful attack, to basically to attack and to destroy Russian forces from here. Because there used to be 14th Brigade, but it was pulled to Izyum bridgehead here. So, as we discussed many times here, there's not enough strong units that capable of any, at least attempt to do offensive. We just generally Ukrainian army does not have skills to do offensives. In terms of, we just want to briefly mention for those who are interested in foreign equipment that's coming to Ukraine. So Ukraine received about 200 plus T-72 tanks from Poland and Czech Republic. Like together between the two is like 220 or something like that. They did not have reactive armor. Ukraine managed to put reactive armor on them, and they now being used here in this Donbass salient, mostly in this northern part of the Donbass salient. Then Ukraine received self-propelled howitzers, but on the wheels, not tracked ones. Dana or Dana from Czech Republic, so they being actively used there as well. Ukraine is actively using M777. It's deployed all 90 of them, and there are 12 more on the way. So all of their sort of equipment that was delivered so far is being actively used on the front lines at this point. There is in terms of what might come, that's sort of how to say, not game changing, but really meaningful, like a heavy equipment. There are Ukraine expects about 12 Panzerhaubitze 2000 from Germany and Netherlands at the end of June or early July. But as you can understand, 12 is not a game changer. It's definitely going to be very extremely helpful. But because there are probably 3,000 or 4,000 units of artillery on the Russian side and probably about like 2,000 or 1,800 on the Ukrainian side, you can imagine that having extra 12 or extra 100 units is not going to be changing anything, because they are better than the Soviet ones, but they're just marginally better. Let's put it this way. They're not like hugely, like they're not like game changer basically, right? So so that's the situation with the heavy weapons. Beyond that, we have not seen any major sort of weapons from Lend-Lease or anything. I mean, it's obviously was just recently signed, so we'll see what else Ukraine gets in terms of heavy weapons that's really going to help, because their inventory is running low in general Ukraine. And that's for those who keeps asking questions. Okay, so where's the new units and all that? Ukraine is severely lacking in terms of weapons and ammunition, right? Because the majority of the factories of military production facilities were destroyed or severely damaged. So, and then, obviously all of the actions by the government in terms of, limiting all of this, setting up the prices for fuel, it creates, it paralyzes economy, right? It paralyzes ability to do anything basically, yeah, right? When people switch to bicycles, it's, you cannot maintain economy when everybody's on the bicycles. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.